It's midnight. You sit alone, the blue glow of a screen flickering across your face. In a timeline filled with smiling faces and endless chatter, you feel utterly alone. You scroll and scroll, searching for something to fill that quiet ache inside. An ache that nothing on the screen seems to soothe. We often think of loneliness as a modern plague, a side effect of the digital age. But over a century ago, a young Portuguese woman poured that same feeling of emptiness and longing into her poetry. Her name was Florbela Espanca, and her verses echo with what we might call the modern ache of being. She was a solitary bloom in the wilderness of existence. From the Silicon Substack blog, I'm Emma Taylor. Today, we wander through Florbela's life and lines, a journey into the melancholy beauty of her world, and how it still reflects our own solitude in the digital age. Florbela Espanca was born in 1894 in the sun-baked region of Alentejo, Portugal. Picture a small town on a wide plain, a solitary flower blooming in an arid field. From the very beginning, Florbela's life was marked by loneliness. She was the illegitimate daughter of a housemaid and a father who refused to acknowledge her at birth. In a conservative Catholic society, she entered the world unclaimed, a child already on the margins. She wrote her first poem at the age of 8. It was tellingly titled Life and Death. Imagine a little girl, not writing about dolls or play, but about mortality. That early poem whispers of a soul acquainted with sorrow from the start. While other children played, Florbela scribbled verses by lamplight, trying to make sense of the emptiness she felt. The first petals of that solitary bloom unfolding. She married young, on her 19th birthday, hoping perhaps that marriage would fill the void. His name was Alberto, a childhood friend. For a time they taught in a village school together, sharing a simple life. But Florbela's heart was restless. She later sought knowledge and freedom in the city. He could not follow. The marriage strained under her ambitions and unquenched longing. As she grew, Florbela yearned intensely for love and acceptance. In her teens and early 20s, she chased big dreams that few women of her time could. At 19, she dared to enroll in the University of Lisbon's law school, one of only a handful of women among hundreds of men. It was a bold escape from the stifling small-town life, an attempt to find her place in the world. But even in the bustling halls of the university, she felt alone, like an exile among peers. She once wrote, "Those who say they can love someone their whole life long are telling a lie." In her poem, To Love, Florbela confesses a painful truth. Love, as she experienced it, was fleeting, never enough to fill the emptiness. Her words spill out in a rush, to love and not love. Florbela had an insatiable thirst for affection, yet an inability to find lasting peace in it. It's as if she was trying to fill her soul with love, the way one might pour water into a cracked vessel. No matter how much she poured, something always leaked away, leaving her yearning again. By her late 20s, Florbela had lived through 2 divorces and 2 heartbreaking miscarriages. In the 1920s, a divorced woman was scandalous. A woman who divorced twice was almost unthinkable. Florbela endured the sideways glances and gossip of a society that could not comprehend her. She channeled that pain into her writing. In the book of Sister Saudade, named after the untranslatable Portuguese word for longing, she wrote poem after poem of aching desire and loss. In one poem from that collection, she addresses the agony of remembering a lost love. Her lines capture the vicious cycle of trying to forget someone, only to remember them even more. How many times, my love, I've already forgotten you, just to remember you more madly. The less I wanted to remember, the more I missed you. Anyone who has tried to get over a heartbreak knows that feeling. You delete the photos, you tell yourself it's over. Yet every attempt to forget just sharpens the memories. Florbela gives voice to that cruel paradox. The more she tries to move on, the more intensely she feels the absence. In our era, we might experience this by scrolling through an ex's old Instagram posts at 2 a.m, heart aching with every click. Florbela had only pen and paper, not pixels, but the loneliness is the same. Across a century, her longing, that profound longing, remains instantly recognizable. Through all her searching, one constant companion in Florbela's life was solitude. At times she seemed to embrace it. At others it nearly broke her. She often wandered the plains of her Alentejo homeland, finding comfort in nature. Under the vast sky and among the olive trees, she felt both tiny and profoundly connected to something bigger. Yet even nature offered only brief solace. Night after night, in her poetry, she confronted the hollowness inside her, what she once called her torment without faith. By 1927, Florbela's beloved younger brother, Apelles, died in a tragic airplane crash. Some say it was an accident, others whisper it was suicide, a young man heartbroken after losing his fiancée. For Florbela, who had adored her brother beyond words, this loss was shattering. He had been one of the few people who truly understood her, her confidant, her kindred spirit. With him gone, her world became a far colder place. She wrote a collection of short stories titled The Masks of Destiny in his memory, attempting to wrest meaning from senseless loss. But privately, Florbela plunged deeper into despair. In one of her late sonnets, she paints a self-portrait of her desolation. I am deep in this black well, without illusions, without beliefs, without tenderness, a torment without faith. Imagine Florbela in those final years, ill in health, weakened by a chronic edema that made each breath a struggle, isolated in her pain, scribbling in her diary by candlelight. She attempted suicide twice in those months, as if testing the waters of oblivion. And yet even in her darkest hours, she transformed her anguish into art. She finished her last book of poems, Heath in Bloom, aptly named for a wild heathland flowering in spite of everything, a solitary bloom in a barren landscape, defiantly alive. It was as if she knew the end was near. On December 8, 1930, Florbela Espanca died by her own hand an overdose of sleeping pills, on her 36th birthday. The news barely made a ripple in Portugal at the time. A small obituary, a sigh, and she was gone, like a candle blown out at the moment it should have shone brightest. One might imagine, in the silence after her death, the wind sweeping again over the Alentejo plains, carrying with it the whisper of her verses. Florbela's life was brief and stormy, but her words refused to die. In the decades after her death, readers discovered the raw honesty in her poetry and clung to it. Today, she is celebrated as one of Portugal's greatest poetic voices, a pioneer who spoke her truth as a woman in a world that preferred her silent. Her sonnets of love and loneliness have been set to fado songs, quoted in love letters, taught in classrooms. They live on, finding new hearts to break and, paradoxically, to console. What is it about Florbela Espanca's writing that resonates so deeply now, in the age of smartphones and social media? Perhaps it's that she understood loneliness in a way few of her contemporaries dared to admit. She wrote about lying awake at night, feeling unseen and unloved. She wrote about praying for affection, about the emptiness behind false smiles. In an era of carefully curated online happiness, how familiar does that sound? She has a poem called The Woman, in which she addresses the facade that many women and men maintain. She exclaims, "Oh woman, how weak you are, and how strong, how you can pretend when in your chest your soul is bitterly writhing." That line hits like a truth we all know. The smile in the profile picture hiding the depression, the cheerful status update masking a cry for help. Florbela saw behind the mask a century ago. She had to hide her own pain behind courtesies and polite smiles, even as her heart was twisting inside her. The world might have advanced in technology, but the human heart remains much the same. We still dissemble, we still ache. Yet, in all her melancholy, there is a strange comfort in Florbela's poetry. She doesn't sugarcoat the pain of existence, but she beautifies it. She takes the solitary bloom of her sorrow and holds it up for us to see, and it is radiant, even in its wilt. By expressing her loneliness so exquisitely, she makes us feel less alone in ours. It's as if across time, Florbela reaches out a hand to the modern soul and whispers, "I understand. The details of our lives differ." She never knew the sting of an unanswered text or the weird emptiness after binge-watching TV at 3 a.m. But she knew the core of it, that longing for connection, that search for meaning, the question of why one feels so alone even when surrounded by people. Her work also carries a defiant spark of hope amidst the despair. In the same sonnet where she declares lifelong love a lie, she ends with an image of resurrection. "And if one day I must be dust, ashes and nothing, let my night be a dawn, let me be lost, to find myself." Florbela Espanca's night indeed became a dawn, her darkest hours giving birth to words that would inspire others for generations. She allowed herself to be lost in her art, and in doing so she found a kind of immortality. Her solitary bloom, once overlooked, now stands bright in the garden of literature, its fragrance reaching far beyond her own time and place. In the end, Florbela teaches us that there is beauty in embracing the ache of being human. She didn't find all the answers. Her life was tragically cut short, her loneliness never fully cured. But through her poetry, she wrestled meaning from madness. She turned solitude into something sublime. As we navigate our own lonely nights, our anxious scrolls through feeds, our silent commutes in crowded cities, we can find an unexpected companion in Florbela Espanca. In her verses, despair and grace intertwine. She reminds us that feeling deeply, even when it hurts, is proof that we are alive, that we yearn for something more. So tonight, if you find yourself awake with that familiar hollow feeling, consider the voice of Florbela echoing from 100 years ago. Hear her whisper through the dark. You are not alone in being alone. Like a solitary bloom nodding to another across an empty field, her poetry reaches out to us. You've been listening to Silicon, a Substack blog. I'm Emma Taylor. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the melancholy beauty of Florbela Espanca.